Hey gang, as promised, I just want to give you a quick review of Egyptian history. This will be very brief, but hopefully very helpful. You're looking at Egypt from satellite view. This is the Nile. It's one of 4 rivers in the world that flows south to north. 90% of the people in Egypt who live there live along the Nile. You can put your left foot on plush green grass and your right foot on scorching sand. Basically, it floods, brings dirt, and waters it perfectly for all the harvests throughout the year. So it's a phenomenon. This is why they call it the gift of the Nile. We'll be looking at the divisions of Egyptian history in the Old Testament, starting with the early dynasty, which would be associated with Narmer from 31 to 100 to 2800 BC. Then the Old Kingdom, the first intermediate period, or you could call these the first Great Depression of Egypt. The Middle Kingdom, the second intermediate period, and then the time of the Exodus, which would be the New Kingdom. Let's just quickly and briefly go over these. First of all, the early dynasty is started and marked by a guy by the name of Narmer. We have his palette, and on it there are some designs. Here he personifies Upper and Lower Egypt under his control, like wild beasts that he's tamed. He also is wearing on his palette the hat or the crown that the king of the north and the south in those 2 separate places used to wear. He's also communicating that he's in charge. Here you can see how he has a prisoner and he's about to hit him in the head with his staff. But also on the left here, when you zoom in close on that, he has also decapitated people and put their head between their ankles to basically say, if you don't obey me and submit to me, I'll bash you, and if that doesn't work, I'll take your head off. But have no doubt about it, I'm in charge. He begins the reign of pharaohs over all of Egypt throughout history. This continues all the way into what we call the Old Kingdom. In the Old Kingdom, the pharaoh is viewed as a god. So all of the gold, all of the glory, and all of the labor went to building the temples. They would bury the kings with gold. They would build the temples, and so eventually, as this cycle continued, it couldn't continue forever, and it bankrupted the nation. And in this area, which we call the Giza Plateau, which is around here, is where all of the major pyramids that you mostly see in pictures of Egypt are. You can see in the distance here in the Old Kingdom, one of the first pyramids called the Stepped Pyramid, which is in the area of Saqqara. And there's a picture of it up close. This is associated with the architect Imhotep, and the pharaoh that he built this for was Djoser. Imhotep is kind of a Benjamin Franklin of his time. We all know that he was conducting brain surgeries because we have the skulls both of people who died during the surgery and then also people who they have the mark of the skull being opened, but it healed back over, showing that he had successful surgeries. And again, he builds this shrine for Djoser that's inside of it, and he is the one to be associated with it. Going from the Old Kingdom, you can't only give all your money and your time away until eventually you lose faith and go bankrupt, and this is what produced the first intermediate period. It was a financial bankruptcy of Egypt and a faith bankruptcy of Pharaoh as God. So in order to recapture their image, the Middle Kingdom, after 250 years, reworks the image, and the Pharaoh not only is seen as a god, but he says, I'm your God, and he reworks the image of what we know as the shepherd Pharaoh. He holds a shepherd's staff in his hand, and this is why Moses coming in with the shepherd's staff is so symbolic. And you have more pyramids being built in this time. This, however, was not enough for them to recover their nation. They had to get their finances moving, so they bring in foreigners, and in this case the Hyksos, who eventually say to themselves, why should we just pay our taxes to the pharaohs when we can own the nation for ourselves? This gives way to the Second Great Depression of Egypt, or the Second Intermediate Period, and it was a cultural one where the foreigners took over. What we do know is the Hyksos set themselves up in the north of the country. The Egyptians were forced into the middle. Eventually, this continued for some time until the Hyksos communicated with the southern border of the Nubians below, and they decided that the 2 would come from the south and the north and wipe out Egypt. This is what raises to power the 2 brothers, Ahmose and Kamose. And here we have, in fact, an inscription of Kamose's fight with the Hyksos, another inscription of that, and we have in the tomb of a soldier who served under Ahmose that eventually they took it back. Long story short, Ahmose will eventually win back the north, and this explains why in the time of Moses and the Israelites, why they would kill the children of people overpopulating. It also explains their attitude towards the Israelites and foreigners. They're just very prejudiced, very hostile, and thinking nothing of enslaving them. And so that's about as far as I'll go with this because of, for time's sake, hope this has helped you. I encourage you guys to give some postings below for stuff that was mentioned in class that wasn't mentioned in this video for your review and to help your classmates.